Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, December 12th, and this is your Cup of Jones. What's up, everybody? Crazy week, gotta be honest. Crazy couple of weeks. Pretty beat, pretty tired. I usually, what was it the Kyle says about Regis? You know, you never admit when you're pushed to the wall. But crazy times. We had Game Awards, PSX. And not only when you have big events, stuff that geared around the weekends, I just realized my shirt is actually perfectly positioned in that shot. This is one of my faves. A gift from Amanda. Robin Hood, get it? But Game Awards, PSX Showcase Friday night, which I went to with Bloodworth, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, meet and greet Saturday night, or officially meetup, as it is now termed, as I've learned from some of the allies. So like meet and greet, it's a meetup. And then yesterday, sorting through all of the stuff that we saw at the show and we did our live reactions. So shot a couple shows today, shooting some extra stuff today to try to prepare stuff for the holidays. And so it's just one thing after another. So not doing an editorial today. Have not been working on the Souls retro, catching up still on all of that stuff. Looking forward to finishing Souls and playing lots of Persona 5 over the holidays. It's also been a busy week for Patreon. Looks like I'm sounding okay and looking okay. Everything seems okay. I haven't really talked about this. I think I talked about the fires briefly. The air quality in Los Angeles, where we are, has been very poor lately. The winds have been very strong, and a lot of things in various directions have been on fire. In relations to some of the allies, they are actually, I wouldn't say in the thick of it, but they are close. They've had power go out, and I'm sure it's tougher to breathe up where they are than here. But in generally, for HQ, it is far north. But you can definitely see it, and it's definitely affecting the city. So thoughts and prayers to everybody that is being affected by that. Candy Coated Thorsons, we look and sound okay, so that's the best you can possibly do. But things have been crazy here on Patreon as well, because they've just announced they're going to be making some changes to the pricing structure that are going to take effect in about a week and a half, a little over a week. If you go to earlier here on patreon.com/Easy Allies, if you haven't seen the post already, if you are new to Easy Allies, you can go and see our stance on it. At the moment, we're still waiting for more information. It appears to be part of a structure of more changes, some of which sound okay, but in general, long story short, our patrons are going to have to pay for something that previously was being taken care of and something already, and something that we would be happy to, a charge we would be happy to accrue for ourselves if it meant that the pricing structure that you have to choose and then do month after month is very crystal clear. There's no smoke and mirrors, there's no backdoor shady deals. And while we will definitely be unafraid to voice our opinions, and I think a lot of our concern about the updates that they are planning seem to be echoed by a lot of other people in the industry, especially people with successful Patreons. And I think this has financially affected a lot of people more than it has affected us. That's still all we can really do at this point, is just kind of express our concerns, which we've done. Obviously, you put up a post on Patreon that is speaking pretty loudly to Patreon itself, but of course we have emailed people there at the company and talked to other Patreons. Great opportunity to do that at PSX this weekend and just kind of sort out what this means and what the backlash will be. I think I have 4 questions in a row about it, and so I'm going to read all of those off, and then I've just kind of said my piece about it, but and then kind of slid some questions around the front that have to do just generally with sponsorship and tiers, and we're very Patreon focused, so we're going to start with some Patreon stuff right off the bat. But we'll get to that in a second. I just want to thank a bunch of people. I felt very grateful for all sorts of things this week, even though I was very stressed and very silent consonant. I'm very sleepy too. It's a very sleepy day here at Easy Allies. I'm gonna be going for a while, and then tomorrow I'm going to a video game event, which you'll find out about later, which I'm excited about. So I have lots of people to thank. I want to thank people that I bumped into at the Game Awards. I saw some people, of course, in the industry, but some fans also came up to me. It's really, really great to see people that I recognize that are allies, that people have been around either since the GT days or since, when Easy Allies first formed. Recognize them, know them on a first-name basis, and continually see them at events. That's something also that came up at PSX, that thank you to everybody that said hello during PSX. It was really fun to walk up to people that I recognized and have them kind of be surprised, wait a minute, You recognize me just from one or two events, and I'm not saying I do that all the time. I'm not saying to count on that, but I was proud of myself when we had our meetup at PSX. I was continually asking, we've met before, right? And most of the time I got that right. Just in general, the PlayStation experience. I also want to thank, obviously there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple weeks about my appearing on Colin Moriarty's podcast and collaborating with CLS, as it were. And I want to thank a lot of people that have reached out to me on social media from CLS that have been very nice. They've been very kind, very polite, very loving, very respectful. They've emailed me, they've sent me DMs, they've said publicly on Twitter after watching the show that they dug it. And I just realized that I attempted to do some damage control to communicate. Obviously, when we do this, this is me speaking directly to the patrons of Easy Allies. And so I think I put a lot of attention on Easy Allies and a lot of communicating and making sure that people's voices were being listened to and that I was articulating my points carefully. But haven't really directed any of that specifically at CLS, and haven't directed a lot of that at Colin himself, who talks to a lot of different people on social media, but when talking to me, when dealing with the show, inviting me over to his house, meeting him and his family and his friends, meeting his dog, which is the most adorable dog ever, and he's just been really great to me. So I didn't, that was one thing that I didn't touch on. When you have events that are about that big, that affect that many people, and you do a show only once a week, thank goodness I do this show once a week now, you don't necessarily get the opportunities to focus on specific people. So apologies if that's something that just like seems to drag on, but I just want to see all parts of it and learn as much from that as I possibly can. And I did. Right at the end of the year, it's the middle of December, and that was a very interesting education in some of the potential issues that can pop up when running a successful Patreon. And despite some of the issues that we've had personally, possibly, over the last couple weeks, and despite some of the issues that we are now facing with Patreon.com, with some of the financial decisions that we're making, we have a very successful Patreon, everybody. We're still above 6,100 patrons. We have a lot of we've gotten a bunch of new sponsors lately for the podcast, a bunch of new sponsors lately for Frame Trap, some which you are hearing right now, some which you will find out about soon. And so it's got us to think when we're starting out 2018 about ways that we can maybe shake up sponsorship and think of other shows that can be sponsored, ways that they can be sponsored at different tiers. We've long talked about doing like a $750 tier, which is both podcasts, but we obviously don't want to like oversaturate our podcast. You're constantly hearing about sponsors. We want to make that fun. And I think in a lot of different cases, obviously, Scorn is a game we're excited about. Iron Harvest isn't a sponsor anymore, but that's a game I'm excited about. Got to meet Jojo Dentko. I don't know what his... I think I learned his first name, but I'm not sure if he wants to have that out. But learned the wonderful man who runs Jojo Dentko. And he loves hail. He follows hail around, which is great. When people's cars get banged up from hail, he is there, swoops in to save the day. Thank you to everybody for your financial support. Thank you to everybody that either because of the issues from last week or Patreon changing their stuff, dropped pledges, but left responses saying this has nothing to do with you. That just has to do with financially. I can't support this anymore. Financially, I have to lower my pledge, or I'm just speaking with my wallet, trying to want to send a message to Patreon. And that's what's really great about this democratic Patreon that we have, where you can make those decisions. I'm definitely going to eat all those marshmallows up, says the Jastram. I need no context about that. Tonight, on twitch.tv/EasyAllies, 6 p.m. Pacific time, for our group stream, it will be the last Hall of Greats induction ceremony for the year of 2017. It'll be the fourth Hall of Greats that we have done. We've just started doing that this year. We will have 4 next, I guess 4, because it's 4 times 3 is 12, and there's 12 months. So 4. I guess you do 4 a year. So I guess that worked out for 2017. We didn't do them our first year. Thanks to Kyle Bossman for planning those, for conceiving of that. We have fun plans for Hall of Greats next year. But we're supposed to do it in November. We're going to do it now. I have yet to have a game included in the Hall of Greats. We're up to 6 games now. We induct 2 games every time. And for people who do not watch it, for those of you who are not familiar on Twitch, who normally don't tune into group streams, you might want to tune in tonight. Some people like controversy. They like turmoil. They like to see debate. They like to see allies at odds. They like to see the easy allies turned into an uneasy alliance. And next to the GOTY deliberations, which we may possibly record and show to all of you in the month of January, if you want that fire, the Hall of Greats is where you can find it. We try to have fun, we try to be respectful, but there's a lot of emotions there, especially emotions with me. because I have not had, if this was like UFC and this was my testimonial beforehand, if I'm like interviewing somebody and I'm like, well, I haven't had anything picked for Hall of Greats yet, and I picked things that I was really passionate about. Was surprised that no one voted for World of Warcraft, which then cannot be selected again for another year. And surprised, God, I wonder when that year wraps up. That's got to be only 6 months from now. I got to plan my World of Warcraft thing. I gotta edit a really fast 2-minute World of Warcraft retrospective, just abridge the one that we already did. But I haven't got one picked. I don't think I'm the only ally. I think there's 1 or 2 other allies. Don goes for some deep cuts, and good on him. But he hasn't had anything picked for the Hall of Greats. But long story short, I feel confident about tonight. It's a dangerous thing to say, I admit. I understand. I fully admit defeat if this does not get picked. But it's a big game. It's a game that's obviously very important to me, but it's a pretty huge game. And so I'd be very surprised. If it doesn't get any votes, I will be shocked. Shocked, I tell you. But that'll be tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time, twitch.tv/EasyAllies, the 4th annual, the 4th quad, what is it? 4 times a year, Hall of Greats. Brandon K. Gann, you'll probably touch on it at the beginning, but I wanted to know what your thoughts are about the recent charge change Patreon is implementing to us patrons. I'll post the link below for anybody who wants to see it in the Q&A, but basically, the $1 tier may be negated for those who can only afford that. To my fellow patrons, Patreon is instituting a 2.9 plus 35-cent charge on each pledge for service fees effective December 18th. So each pledge meaning every single Patreon that you pledge to. This will give creators a bigger increase of the pledge money, 95%, but I fear it'll drive the number of patrons down because $1 is actually more than that. Also, a lot of people are throwing out numbers. I don't want to quote any of these people as the absolute fact. Obviously, you want to go to, if you want to then pass on this information, please go to patreon.com and get to the official numbers, which I should have written down. Apologies. But I fear it'll drive the number of patrons down because, and we have had several people leave, because $1 is actually more than that. Using myself as an example, across all of Patreon, I'm pledging $35, and I fear I'll pay more than that with this service fee. Back to Mr. Jones. How do you feel this will affect Easy Allies? If you could hazard a guess, and are you positive, negative, or neutral about this change? I'm not neutral. I'm both positive and negative. I'm positive because I think we'll be okay. I think we will survive this. I don't think this will, destroy Easy Allies. I think it'll negatively impact us, though. So I am negative about it. I think it will have a negative morale hit on our community. I think it'll have it's currently having a negative morale hit against Patreon itself, and I think financially it's going to affect people. It's affecting people right now that are dropping their pledges. I think people that are sticking around will probably see it add up over time and may have to make difficult decisions in the months ahead. If I say positive things about this, I don't want to suggest that it's a positive decision, but like we do have to evolve with this website. Like we do have to change, our policies and change how we do things, change what we focus on. Case in point, how I keep bringing up next year, you could potentially see big changes or not. We just have to have, that discussion. So that's how I feel, Brandon. Brian Denu, again, continuing. Oh, jeez, Amanda scared me. She snuck him in the back. I love it though. A good jolt to the heart. Feels good. Brian Denu, curious to hear, I don't know why she did that. Why would she just wave? There's been so many times when I've started Cup of Jones and I'll be like, hey, later. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to leave. But she wanted to come around, wanted to wave, wanted to go to the back door. Give me a little scare. I could have been making that up. I could have just been imagining Amanda. Who knows? Brian Denu, curious to see what you have to say about Patreon restructuring how they process pledges. The extra 2.9 to every patron's pledge is small, and I'm glad to hear that it removes any processing fees on your end, which is not a big deal. I mean, I've been doing Cup of Jones for a long time. You've never heard me complain about it. But it seems like it may call for some restructuring of higher tiers and may play into how things are reorganized in 2018. What are your thoughts? Which I've already communicated. Greg Kettering, who I met this weekend, finally, Patreon has made some changes to how they do fees. From what I've read, this seems to have a significant impact to the $1 tiers. It's going to impact Easy A and their tier setup. Of course it will impact us, but how much it will impact us remains to be seen. Alexander Breviglieri, I just received an email from Patreon regarding some changes in the way they charge the patrons and how much of that is sent to the creators. What do you think about that? Is that a good thing for you guys, and how will that affect your monthly earnings here? So again, I think I've touched on that a lot, so if I have any epiphanies later on in the stream, I will let you know. The Original Snitch. In the wake of this most recent Patreon update, I've seen a few of the larger Patreon accounts tinkering with the idea of moving off the platform, and creating their own subscription service website. Would you ever consider doing that with EasyAllies.com? Probably not. That takes money, that takes services, that takes vendors, that takes staff to manage that. That's not easy. That's a lot of work. I have experience in doing that. I did experience in doing that with my card game that I created with this company before, the company that I run Easy Allies with. So, been there. I'm not saying I would rule that out entirely. It would be fun to be our own boss and, completely 100% down the road, but not something that'll happen right away, not something that'll happen before we get a studio, not something that I would consider a solution to this. I'm more than happy to put up with Patreon and communicate with them. So we will see. And I'm sure just in the position that Patreon is in, they gotta listen to people, and I'm sure they will. It's just a question of how long it takes to really run the numbers on these things, how long it takes to internally make sure everybody's on the same page, and then communicate that. So it'll be a process. Silent Consonant, an idea for the podcast sponsors. Besides Podcast Halftime, maybe you can give each one a lower third that pops in without audio as the podcast plays. This would only help from the video form, but it was just an idea that popped into my mind. So maybe don't do Podcast Halftime. Don't have them all in there, or maybe that's like just a bonus, like you get them as well. I mean, one of the points is a lot of, I think most of the people that consume the podcast just listen to it, and so that wouldn't necessarily help people to know those. But somebody this weekend suggested the possibility of spacing out Podcast Halftime, so it's not all one big clump, but maybe someone sponsors corrections, someone sponsors bets, some way to space that stuff out a little bit. Reese Simons. I found Podcast Halftime has gotten increasingly intrusive to the podcast. I think it's always been intrusive. That was kind of the point of its design. And the ever-increasing number of sponsors that the tier feels a little off, like the allies are looking to shill out at every opportunity. We are definitely looking to shill out at every opportunity, but not that harsh, obviously. Have you thought about increasing the amount to sponsor the podcast at that level and reducing the number of overall sponsors? Yep, not going to say anything official here, but definitely thought about it. Ibrahim Sozer, my idea with the $750 sponsorship tier is to combine the sponsors of $250 and $500, so the $750 sponsor is for Frametrap and the Easy A podcast. Also, a $1,000 sponsorship that's for all podcasts from movies, anime, and friend code might be appealing to sponsors. I think the limit for it would be one, so you would just have one major sponsor. Definitely talked about like mega sponsors and doing feature, like video features and stuff like that, and having that be at a specific tier. So just need a big old meeting. And actually, there's a very interesting question coming up about that meeting and about the concept of getting together with the allies and talking about business stuff, and if that's the right way to do it, that we will get to in a second. Alejandro Medina, number 1, have you seen Disney's Coco? Thoughts on it? I have not. Number 2, have you ever visited Mexico? I have many, many, many times. I went to Mexico for my bachelor party before I got married. I went to Mexico several times. I went to Mexico in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and I think that was it. I don't think I went 11th. I definitely didn't go my senior year, but I don't know if I went junior year. With my Presbyterian church that I went to as a child, St. Peter's by the Sea, and they had a community program where the kids would go down on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. I went over Memorial Day weekend, and then freshman, sophomore, junior year, or probably just freshman, sophomore of high school, I went over spring break, and that's why I didn't go my senior year and maybe didn't go junior year, because I was like, I need my spring break back, and so took it back. But I would go down with the church, and we would build houses for less fortunate families, and so we would drive in trucks to hills of just, in Tijuana of houses that people had built out of just whatever they could find, and laid down a pretty solid structure of a house. And that felt great. It was fun to. I learned Spanish and throughout school. I learned it up until my sophomore and junior year of high school, and so it was nice to know Spanish and to learn Spanish, and to which I've of course forgotten most of. And my good friend Jeff owned who I founded Game Trailers with. Had I believe probably still has, a condo down in Mexico that I went down to, and I think I've mentioned before on Cup of Jones. So, and it's on a surf break that's just like the best. So, never been to Mexico City though. I'd love to go to Mexico City, and I'd love to tour other parts of Mexico. But born and raised in Southern California, so it's right there. I am familiar with the border, familiar with Tijuana, familiar with that beautiful country. And it's so close, and it's right there. And also just love Mexican food. I don't know if that's like a Three Amigos kind of thing to say, but like, it's just from growing up here and having so many delicious options. It's definitely something that has been a part of my life. And worth noting that a lot of people in chat that are potentially like, hey, mi casa es tu casa, gracias. Swordfish was born in Mexico. That's interesting. I know some people that are like, wow, Jones, yeah, you went and you built houses for the less fortunate. That's really nice of you. It was all my mom. That was my mom being very involved with that church, my brother going through it, and so if the first sibling does it, then I did it. I didn't really have a lot of say in the matter. I didn't go kicking and screaming, but I have to give credit to my mom for creating that opportunity for me to do that, because that was definitely eye-opening. Adam Burkhart, what's your worst trailer you've either scored at GT or wish you scored at Easy A? I know it, and I'm so happy that I know it. I gave it a 1 back when we were doing trailer score. It might have been when we were doing Let's All Go to the Trailers. And it was a Pokemon trailer. Maybe somebody in chat will remember. It was like for an extra edition of a game. It wasn't like an Ultra Sun Moon thing. It was like some... It was like there was the new Pokemon game had come out, and then they were just adding some other version that had like 3 new Pokemon or something. It was almost like a GIF. I mean, it was just... It was like a logo, and the logo went to the side, and Pikachu said a thing, but like didn't even animate, and then they had like the box art, and that was it. And I'm like, that's not a trailer. You do a blog post or you make a video, but you don't do whatever that was. Alex AI, are there plans to return to the GOG mini group stream or something similar? To me, that stream was something like Allies try old or new PC games. It was very entertaining. It was a very entertaining dynamic, and if you don't know which PC games to try, there are always the patrons there to bring in ideas. We give people the opportunity. Obviously, you can join the group stream selection committee if there's a big PC game that you want to push and rally your fellow patrons and get that chosen. We did have a sponsorship thing going for a while. We felt ourselves a little strained. It was around the time when I started doing Cup of Jones Live, and we changed to the showcase. And we looked at a lot of different ways that we could lighten our load and try to figure out what were the important things that we wanted to focus on, what new ideas that we wanted to do, stuff like Easy Living. And unfortunately are not working directly with GOG anymore. Still think GOG is one of the greatest things since sliced bread. I love it. Love the service. Would love to maybe continue that relationship down the road if we have more people or can pass that on to one person to specifically work on. But had to lean really heavily on Damiani to communicate with them. Often found had to lean very heavily on Michael Huber because he really showed up to those. And so a lot of times, because he was very familiar with a lot of weird PC games, because we had to basically look at their catalog and figure out what was the best game to play. But I do like the idea of us forcing to play PC classics. I think that is a fun stream. I know I will completely admit to the fact that at Easy Allies we are more console specific, and that is just out of just being honest, with ourselves. But we do leave a lot of things up to votes from the community. We are always open to feedback, and so we want to get to, and certainly in the future I would love to do retros or other special features on PC exclusive stuff. But for now, we will just try to play PC games as much as we can and understand that Alex loved that, and Alex would like that to return. Richard Eiley, on the subject of the meetup date for the upcoming anniversary in March on the 21st, by all means, don't rigidly force it into a single specific date. GDC is a huge event, which is the weekend following. I think the 21st is a Wednesday. I think GDC either starts that day or the day after it and then goes through that weekend up in San Francisco. And I really do think covering it, GDC, is something that will organically contribute to EZA's growth in a positive way. Of course, every single event does. It's a major industry event, and I think it would be seen as an opportunity to nab some truly unique content and bolster your channel's catalog. And Ian Hink, Man on the Street segment, where he talks to indie devs about their games, seems like a no-brainer to me. That's not to say that the EZA anniversary isn't a big deal. It absolutely is. Isn't a huge deal. It absolutely is. But I don't think that means March 21st is the end-all, be-all date, wherein which allies must come together to meet up and commune. An anniversary can be celebrated on any day. The specifics of when it is are far less important than what it is you actually do on that date. Richard nailed it. Ding, ding, ding. It looks like we're gonna do, don't quote me on this because I don't have the official date, but we are leaning toward doing the meetup the weekend before. So the 21st again is a Wednesday, which would mean the 17th or something is that Friday or Saturday. So it would be on that day. The 21st, I know some people were already working on travel plans. Apologies. the 21st seemed like the good day to do it, and then after we communicated this, which is again is why we try to hold on this stuff, GDC announced their dates for that weekend. So if you want to stick around in LA and you want to do stuff that weekend with allies, you totally can, but we will most likely have our event, whatever that ends up being, details coming as soon as possible, the weekend before. And then the 21st, that Wednesday, we would most likely do a probably another 12-hour stream celebrating the beginning of our 2-year on the actual day that you can join if you're not able to come out to Southern California and hang out with us up in Hollywood. And then that weekend, so just like Richard suggested, go to GDC. I know Daniel Bloodworth is very interested in going to GDC. Maybe send those 2 characters up or more. It'd be fun to go up to San Francisco. I miss some of my buddies in San Francisco. It'd be great to go up and hang out with Kind of Funny and What's Good Games and do some stuff with them. Otori Kiyuya is, this is a subject I hate to bring up. However, it is now necessary after the video review of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It's Xenoblade. I gotta change that. A lot of people really, that officially work on the project, call it Xenoblade. I always call it Xenoblade, but I guess it's Xenoblade. We need to talk about spoilers. I hate to single Ben out, but this is the second time this year that he added spoilers in his review. Added is an interesting word. That makes it sound like he cut the review and then later was like, this needs spoilers, and then like sprinkled spoilers on top. The first one was from Nier Automata, which I cut, I think. I propose that Bloodworth and yourself to create a code of conduct for reviews, which includes a definitive meaning of what spoilers consist. We do have a code of conduct, but that's interesting. I actually haven't written any takeaways down, so let me put a code of conduct, and then we will talk about this. For reviews. Spoilers are in the eyes of the beholders. I do not know specifically the spoiler you speak of. I know that people have mentioned that there was a clip that they did not like that was included in the Xenoblade Chronicles review. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, that review was cut by Mr. Ian Hank. So the way that process went, and I think we talked about this a little bit last week, Ian cut the video, so Ian chose that clip, and then Ben watched the video later and approved it. And I cut Nier, and so I don't know what that would have, spoiler-wise, what that would have been. I know, much like when I work with Ben, and especially when I work with Huber, there was definitely a cutoff. Like, I was not given all of the footage for Nier Automata. I was given a very clear moment of, like, do not show anything past this. And I think one of the things what's tricky about Nier is that the nature of them having multiple endings and having many times where the game kind of starts and stops again and introduces you to another character or another part of the story, different part of the timeline. You want to show that, however, briefly, and it's like, if you show a character in an environment that you've already seen earlier in the trailer, it's like, I don't know if that was specifically the spoiler you were talking about. Here's the problem, Otori. Spoilers are gray by definition. It's like you can't... I don't think you can look at something definitively and say, like, that's a spoiler, fact, trademark, done, stamped. You might consider something a spoiler, and obviously showing like the ending of a game, showing the boss fight. I saw someone was like, "Yeah, didn't they show the beginning of the Ganon fight in the Zelda trailer?" It's like in the review, no, because I didn't have it. Like, if Damiani didn't give me that, I did not have that clip, so there's no way I could have done that. Somebody said that in the reply to Otori, but so. Here's the thing: if we create a code of conduct and we put that up, I'm not saying we will or we won't. That's obviously a discussion I would have to have first with Daniel Bloodworth and then with everyone else who writes reviews. But even if we were to do that, there wouldn't necessarily be a way to solve spoilers, because again, in the case of Ian, in the case of Don, and I'm not pointing anybody, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody here, because I cannot speak to the depth of why that clip was considered spoilery, but. The process would still be that the footage is, the game is given to a person, that person writes a script, that person then hands the script off to me, I read the VO, I hand the VO off to an editor, that editor is then given the gameplay by the person that recorded it, they have the VO and the music and the gameplay, and they cut the review, and then someone else approves it. So the editor putting that review together is almost never going to know, unless they actually play the game themselves, what would be considered a spoiler. And so while it is on Bloodworth and myself and whoever reviewed the game during the review process, to possibly pick those spoilers out, there's no way we can solve this problem 100%. Like, there's no way that we can always be producing stuff that everyone is going to think is completely non-spoilery all of the time. Like, this seems like an issue. There are reviews we did back at Game Trailers that I will admit, like, that, whoops, we put some stuff in there that I was not thinking, but we were very, very young in producing this stuff. But, spoilers are just something we take very seriously. It's not something we're very like cavalier about. And so when it comes to issues like this where they come up, it's always a good learning experience to look at something and to go, okay, like more people than most, thought that one clip and the use of that was a spoiler. But it doesn't necessarily mean that like there's a problem inherent in the review process, or there's a problem, with our like integrity or our inability to pick spoilers. It's just that some games are big, some games are small, some games like a Gone Home or a Game of Thrones Telltale or Batman Telltale, like obviously like we want to make that as non-spoiler as possible. I would definitely turn subtitles off if I was working on a game like that, so you would just see Batman like rah rah rah, but you wouldn't actually see like any specific dialogue that he was talking about. So while it seems like if you saw something that you were spoilery and you think, wow, I'll just call this GT, EZA needs to get their shit together, we take many steps very often in every single thing that we do to ensure that we are communicating the points that we are saying, we are showcasing the examples of the opinions that we have about games, but sometimes that crosses the line. One last thing that may seem insensitive, but reviews are tricky because I see some people talking about complaints of something that would be in a review period. Like, that's just going to be in that review. They're like, some people have suggested that music is a spoiler. They're just like, man, I wish you hadn't put more than one music track in that video. And it's like, well, we want our videos to not be boring, and so you'll listen to about 4 or 5 music tracks from that game if you want to listen to a review. And so I think if you want to open yourself not only up to written reviews but video reviews, if that's important enough to you to decide whether you need to make a purchase, we do fancy video reviews. We try to make these good and entertaining to watch and dynamic. And to make something dynamic in video, you have to show lots of different styles of something. You have to represent the words being spoken in a direct, in a clear, or possibly an ironic way. You have to pace it out in a way that it's not just a person talking, or it's not just watching gameplay the whole thing. And so, fulfilling that. Sophie scratching her, tapping her foot on the floor. It's a good beat, Soph. There's going to be stuff in there. You're going to see some stuff. It's going to come flying at you. And sometimes there may be like teaser stuff where like you see like a flashback or a flash forward or something earlier in the game. And so when we show that, it's not a spoiler because it's earlier in the game, but if you finish the game, you're like, wait a minute, they showed that area. And it's like, well, at the time you didn't know what that area was in the game, and it was from an earlier cutscene. So it's like, it's super gray again. And I think somebody else brings up spoilers later on, but I think we covered that pretty well. But Atori, that doesn't mean that if you think someone's something spoiler, you should just keep it to yourself. Always let us know. And I'd be curious if people message me specifically with the context there. Because I don't want to single Ben out. That's up to Ben. And I know Xenoblade's a big game, so I wonder if specifically in what context that clip offended. Classy Lunatic, what question would you like to be asked that is yet to come up? What question would I like to be asked? I think I had a snarky answer for this, but I don't remember. Who is my favorite president? I can't ask myself that question. Ricardo Candelario, curious as to who were your biggest role models, both growing up and in the game industry. Role models is a fun word. I have favorite people that I liked in the industry. Big Spielberg fan growing up, big George Lucas fan, big John Williams fan, big Jim Henson fan. But I don't know about role models. I guess I wanted to be them. Probably Spielberg, growing up and watching Raiders and Jaws and following, even just stuff that he was producing. But role models. I mean, I'll tell you this. Greg Miller, for sure. This weekend was crazy going to the showcase Friday night and seeing Greg Miller up on stage with Sean Layden and Shuhei Yoshida, basically like representing not only our industry, but as somebody, as someone, who is a colleague of his, seeing him up on stage with the Kind of Funny logo in the background, standing next to the Kind of Funny people and kind of looking at him and they being like, this is crazy. Look at us. And just, a lot of, Danny O'Dwyer, for having his successful Patreon doing, some similar stuff to what we were doing back at GT, but just absolutely nailing the documentary format. A lot of people that came before me, your Adam Sesslers, your Kevin Pereiras, I want to say Corey Rouse is his name. There's a guy that Amanda works with who had a show. He hosted Cheats, I think, on G4, and then I saw him improvising with Amanda, and we got a drink after at a bar, and I was like, I used to watch you on Cheats. I don't remember if it was called Cheats. But just anybody involved in games journalism, the entire staff of VGM growing up, I love that magazine. A lot of people in the early days of Tech TV and G4. Used to watch a ton of G4 back in the day. When I was creating GT, I basically was just marathoning Final Fantasy XI and G4. Jose Santos. On the subject of spoilers, so back to this, particularly on your reviews and the guidelines that you use, maybe you should make them public, the guidelines, who actually suggest the same thing. So people know what to expect, because as someone that had no problem with the Xenoblade clip in question, it seems to me that limits vary too widely from person to person for a uniform solution. So not necessarily review to review, but reviewer to reviewer. Granted, I'm not sensitive to that except for common sense, the major story twists, but others, as I read in the comments review, didn't even want to spoil the soundtrack. That person reasonably knew not to watch the video, but it goes to show that if you were to cater to everyone, there wouldn't be a review. Should you make them looking for the lowest common denominator, if that's even possible, or just to be reasonable and inform the super sensitive with an on-site or similar general disclaimer? Interesting topic. I will bring it up with the allies. DRD 7 of 14, I would recommend some sort of banner be added for political talks, controversial issues or the like, so that Patreon members jumping in are aware of what time of the weekly Cup of Jones it is, but otherwise the format seems pretty decent. Interesting controversy banner. I don't know if I'll put that on the to-do list, but I'll think about it. Let me see. Andrade, got it. Daniel Garza Andrade, got some good pronunciations this weekend, in case all of you are wondering. It's not Sazime, it's Sazim. It's not Abident, it's Obident. And it's not Argomanes, it's Argomanes. Daniel Garza Andrade. Where are the bloopers? Have you considered doing some videos about bloopers of your videos? I would love to see those. Yeah, similar to highlights, how we have the wonderful Some Game News that produces the best of Easy Allies from week to week, or has many times in the past. Just takes time to go back through stuff. I've thought about doing like VO bloopers and stuff. I've thought about taking VO bloopers when we post reviews, like after we post a review, like post like on Twitter, just dropping up and putting a clip in of me goofing up a take. Those would be funny. Those would be great. It's a great idea. It takes time. That would be a fun intern job, hopefully in the future if we ever get those. Ihi or Ihai Yovak. I was thinking of this jokingly at first, but maybe we should make an EZA community guide detailing what type of environment you can expect from each EZA community. Twitch chat, the forums, Reset Era, Reddit, Discord, etc. The Discord can be summed up as the Mos Eisley of EZA. So some scum and villainy if you want to head over to Discord. Yeah, it's tricky because we don't want to label something as something. You don't want to go over to a group and be like, well, this entire group of people is this. I think that could potentially be dangerous, especially because if new people are finding a community, if one of these areas is evolving or changes in a certain way, you brought a Reset Era, case in point, if something like a NeoGAF moves to a Reset Era or something like a Reset Era moves to another site. This does echo a sentiment that I have been thinking about, which is now that we have reproduced our Welcome to Patreon video, I think we should make a video specifically just for YouTube and just for Patreon, make two separate videos. Likewise, that we need to update the video that's currently on Easy Allies Plays. And I would love to make either a post or a video or both, or maybe a section of the website, someplace you go that's like an introduction to EZA. So it's not just the video where it's like, hey, here's who we are. It's like, welcome to EZA. It's like now that you're here, now that you want to watch our videos, or now that you're a patron, or now that you subscribe on Twitch, what you get out of that specifically, and where we would suggest you'd go from there. So not necessarily like, this is Discord, they're mean, or they're scum and villainy, however you specifically put it with Mos Eisley. You're going to get your hand chopped off on Discord. Be like, here's Discord, here are the things that we do moderate, here are the things we don't moderate. So, understand that going to some places on social media, like we do not have people there on a regular basis, being the lifeguard watching the pool. But we do recommend that you go there and or you can go there and meet other fans of Easy Allies, go there and continue the conversation. And here's potentially ways to do that. Because people have suggested that in the past, and I think that's a great perspective I haven't thought of before, is that new patron of EZA. Because I was just like, you just watch stuff. And sometimes it's not that simple for people. Especially when you're really trying to find the value of EZA. Stephen Beaumont, my question is very egocentric, but as a $7 patron, roughly $10-ish, I feel, after the exchange, I feel like anyone under the $10 Patreon is less important than, say, a $5 Twitch subscriber that gets lauded for every month that they resubscribe. It's a small concern of mine and very much driven by the fact that so many $7 and below patrons may never have their names read out. Totally egocentric, I know, but I would like to know your thoughts. Stephen Beaumont actually got into a conversation with somebody below, but I just wanted to bring this up because I thought it was an excellent point. And they brought up that for just $1, you can join this. You can ask me questions on Cup of Jones. And so if you would like to have your name read out on Cup of Jones and you ask a very civil, loving, and respectful question, then I will include it in the show. And Stephen was like, oh, you're right. Never mind, Jones. But I thought, that was a good, again, perspective for Stephen to bring up because... now that we're talking about potentially reevaluating the worth of, pledging to Easy Allies via Patreon, if you give us $5 on Twitch, you get one thing. If you give us $5 on Patreon.com, you give us another. It's a very popular question. It's one that actually popped up a couple times this weekend at the meetup, which is, I want to give you $5. Better to do that via Patreon, better to do that via PayPal, or better to do that on Twitch. And there is no definitive answer. I think the best way is just to help people understand what happens when they do each of those and how it benefits us, and then they can make that decision themselves. But, so, we solved that one almost immediately, but it was a good conversation as well. Logan Tosse, or Toss. Any games from when you were younger that you really didn't like, but at this point you really enjoy? Likewise, any games you liked before but don't anymore? Fighting games were really frustrating as a kid. I really wanted to get good at Street Fighter, and I wasn't. And I remember getting Clay Fighter for the Super Nintendo, and I remember playing Mortal Kombat back in the day and just being terrible at it. Nowadays, I buy something like Injustice 2, non-ironically, and play people online, win a couple times, feel good about it. Any games you liked before but don't anymore? It was also interesting too playing difficult games when I was a kid. Games that were very frustrating, and then going back now and beating them. It was very rewarding going back and beating the original Super Mario Brothers for NES because I just played it a billion times, never finished it. Had seen the ending many times, but never actually in one shot played it all the way through. No Game Genie, nothing. Any games you liked before but don't anymore? Not really. Games are pretty great. How about that? Yeah, not a lot of games. I mean, EverQuest, I guess. I probably wouldn't have fun playing. A lot of online service stuff that just, they've just gotten better at making. But yeah, games are pretty rad. I can't think of an old game that, because it makes me think if you gave me the opportunity to play an old game, if you gave me something akin to an NES classic that played old games that I liked, I would relish the opportunity to play them again on a big screen. And with a controller that worked. So, yeah, can't really think of a lot of games. Maybe something will jump into my brain before the end of the show. Turbo Chicken Man, please do Halo for the Hall of Greats. Not my game tonight, but a good game, and something I actually considered. It was so groundbreaking in so many ways, still holds up today. Thank you to the amount of polish Bungie put into it. Moments like the one you described still feel incredible. Check out Reset Era's Halo Nostalgia thread if you need any more proof of how perfectly suited it is for Hall of Grades. By the way, how come you didn't read my Tony Hawk follow-up last week? I'm really interested in gauging your interest level in Tony Hawk 2. You might not have put a question mark on it, Turbo Chicken Man, so a lot of times when people ask a comment, and then I give an answer, and then they respond, and not really in the form of a question, just kind of here's another thing I want to add to what you said. The conversation kind of ends there. But if you want to continue me talking about it, throw a question mark. But if you did and I didn't, then apologies, Chicken Man. Maybe I'll get to Tony Hawk one of these days. Maybe I should do a series of games that I didn't really like, but at this point I really enjoy. That could be one of them. Halo is great, but the trick is, Do you want to bring something to Hall of Greats to make a point to your audience and then leave it at that? Or do you want to bring something to Hall of Greats to win? Do you want to bring something to Hall of Greats to get in there? And when you bring something to Hall of Greats, you're not just thinking about this game is quality, period. You got to think about this game is quality, and at this point in the life of Hall of Greats will be a compelling choice for all of the other allies. And so that's what I'm hoping tonight. I brought a game that a lot of the allies will be like, got a lot of happy memories with that game. That's going to be a tough game not to vote for. Andy Zolkeefly, I'm from Singapore, and my brother and I have always wanted to visit the E3 event with my brother, especially during the launch of the new consoles. So, do you have any advice for planning a trip to attend the event as an attendee, i.e. the number of days to set aside to attend the event, any recommended activities or places to go to? I would look up restaurants, I would look up places to eat in Los Angeles before you get here. Downtown Los Angeles, where the LA Convention Center is. The Convention Center is very close to the freeways. So there's the 10 freeway and the 110, and they cross, and the Convention Center is just northeast of that intersection. And so if you're just going to the Convention Center and you take the highways and you get off, there's a lot going on there. There's fun restaurants down by LA Live. There's the Microsoft Theater where the Game Awards were. There's Staples Center. If any sports events are happening around that time, sometimes it's the NHL Finals. So you got the Kings going, you got E3, you got concerts and stuff like that potentially happening downtown. Downtown can be very expensive though, and downtown can also be kind of shady and spooky at different times of night. So I really like Comic-Con because I think San Diego's a really great city, and I think San Diego really embraces Comic-Con very well. LA doesn't really light up like that. When E3 happens, you want to Uber around as much as you can, or rent a car and drive that around, because there are a lot of things to do in Los Angeles, but Los Angeles is very big, and so you're going to want to drive to places. But City Walk is really fun. It's where Universal Studios is. They got Harry Potter Land over there, and a bunch of new fun rides and attractions. So that is fun to do if you want to go to a theme park. Disneyland is just down the 5 freeway, which is just right north. You can get the 5 north of Los Angeles and take the 5 all the way down to Disneyland. I think it's like 30 minutes from downtown LA, 30-40 minutes. Depending on traffic, could be 2 hours. Yeah, I'd basically don't just focus on downtown Los Angeles. Don't just look at where E3 is, look at the convention center, and then look around there. Go all the way to the coast, look up in the valley, up in Hollywood, or up in Toluca Lake, where Amanda used to live, look all around. Because there's fun places. There's some fun places in Culver City. There's fun places on Wilshire, and Melrose. Obviously, like Sunset Boulevard has some fun clubs you can go to. So look all around, and definitely don't just go out of your hotel if you're staying in downtown LA and just start like walking around. Be like, we'll find something. You definitely want to know where you're going. Andy Zolkeefly also asks, I watched your EZA group stream playing Cuphead, and based on your reactions, it seems that most of the allies looked bored or not interested in the game, except those who are playing the game, particularly when the allies are in the back and are having their own discussion about something not related to Cuphead. Yes. I watched Achievement Hunter playing Cuphead and compared to EZA. I'm sorry to say this. I enjoyed watching Achievement Hunter's playthrough of Cuphead as they were more engrossing with the game and seeing their reactions. They posted 2 videos of their Cuphead playthrough. I recommend watching the PlayPals Cuphead video. I don't know whether the allies are trying to be professional or or they're not interested in this game. If you had thoughts on this, I'd be very appreciative. I'm vaguely familiar with the staff of Achievement Hunter. I could probably spot those guys in a crowd, but I do not watch a ton of their content. But I know one difference that I could potentially call out between us and the Achievement Hunter people is I think there's more of us. I'm not saying that's better. In this case, Andy, you called out a moment where that can actually be bad because we are not engaged. We obviously can't, with the wide shot, maybe this will change when we get a studio, but we can't fit all of us together at the same time. There is a front row and there is a back row, and it is much like how we use proper mic, control and speak directly into the mic and try not to have the mic block our faces when we're on camera. It's the same kind of thing where the people in the back definitely need to be respectful to people in the front, and not only need to not talk while they're talking, but also seem engaged and focused on the game. you will see a lot of instances where there are games that very easily manage to capture the attention of everybody in the room. Your Until Dawns, your Jackbox, party box games. And so there are times where we are all engaged, or if somebody wants to have a conversation, they will get up and leave. But this is something that we've gotten wrong in the past. It is something that we definitely want to improve. It's something that is tricky for me to talk about while we're live, because I never want to be like, hey, shut up in the background, I'm going to turn this stream around. I don't want to be Dad Jones live too much. I don't want to, it's something like chat eats that stuff alive. It's just like, whoa, you could tell like that one person was frustrated. Like you said, it seemed like people were bored. It wasn't because we were bored. It's because we don't spend a ton of time together in person. And so all it takes is for somebody to be in the back row and be like, did you see that episode of Dragon Ball? And then they're gone. They're off in like a 15-minute conversation. And so, you don't see this a lot of the time, but that happens when we are streaming. When we did our reactions to PSX yesterday before we went live, I was on the PC and I'm just like, hey, everybody, pay attention, because people are playing 3DS games. They got to bring in their Switches. They're talking about stuff, and so it can be difficult to focus because we enjoy hanging around with each other. But we should try to be professional more. And thank you for the example. Thank you for specifically bringing up Achievement Hunter. Go check them out. And for comparing us playing a game to them playing a game, because we want to improve. It not only helps to have specific notes, but to have role models, as was brought up before, people to look up to. Terrence Karen, can we have a Discord channel for patrons? We consider Discord something a little too complex at the moment for us to handle officially. So we are not moderating a Discord currently. We do not have the manpower to do that. That is something that will potentially change in the future, and if it does, I will let you know. So there is an Easy Allies Discord that you can go check out. It is unofficial, but if that is how you prefer to communicate, you can check it out and see if it's for you. I don't have the link. Maybe somebody can link that. Sebastian Ferreira. I work at a very small production company in the post-production department, mostly editing video. So I'd love to know the workflow you guys follow on your content. Which software do you guys use? Adobe Premiere and After Effects and XSplit for... I know some of the guys, when they stream from their apartments or houses, they use... what is it called? OBS. But we use XSplit here. I'm currently using XSplit. How do you capture video game footage with Game Capture, generally on a PC? So we go into a Elgato and then capture with their Game Capture software. Do you ever need to color correct some camera footage? We have in the past. We don't do that much anymore. I'm bad with color correction. Ian is very good at it. Also, it'd be nice if you could share a bit about your career as an editor, your experiences, tips, what got you into video editing, etc. I remember watching Easy Update of Ian editing the Destiny 2 review, and it was quite enjoyable. Hopefully you and Don could do something similar in the future. I have. You could go back on Twitch, or you go to Easy Allies Plays, and you can see me editing. I couldn't do the video because I couldn't get the video to show up, so I got to get a different monitor and figure out how to make that happen. But I did edit the audio for the Dragon Quest Builders review, so you can maybe look that up and see my editing process. But the quick version is I actually did theater for a very, very long time. I did theater all the way up until my freshman year of college, and I had one class where we went through the audition process, and I was like, wow, auditioning for something is not fun anymore. If you audition for a bunch of strangers, it sucks. And I had normally auditioned for friends or classmates or teachers, and so this is the first time that I'd really gotten into workshopping the process of auditioning. So I was like, I don't want to do that, and I initially wanted to be a film major. I applied to some schools as a film major, but I just didn't think, I hadn't done that much of video production. I'd done a lot of theater, and so I was like, I don't think I have the experience to possibly get into a film department. But then I went to Emerson College in Boston, which is where I was at film school. That was where I was at the theater department, and then went into my counselor's office and said, I want to be a film major. How do I do that? And he signed a piece of paper, and I was a film major. And I've been doing nonlinear editing ever since. I learned on Media 100, and this was in 1999 or 98, and that was again in Boston at Emerson College. Is very forward-thinking in terms of tech and the tech that they have. I remember at the time, around the turn of the century, my buddies that I started GT with were just doing 16 and 35 millimeter stuff in school. They weren't doing a lot of digital, and so it was fun, using DV cam tapes, and stuff is so much easier now. But that got me into video editing, and then absolutely fell in love with the format and started editing trailers and started cutting video game trailers and cut some video game trailers, brought those home to show my friends, and showed my friend Jeff Groats. Was like, look at some video game trailers I cut. And my friend Jeff was like, and the rest is history. Yeah, so and go check out that Dragon Quest Builders thing if you want. Simon Wallace, there's been a distinct lack of Sophie in more recent Easy Allies videos compared to the past. She used to appear in almost every podcast, snuggled up on the couch or rambling around looking for attention. There was also the fantastic moment where she jumped onto the table in Tabletop Escapades. We can enjoy that, and that was fun, but like I don't want to encourage Sophie to throw herself at things in this room, but yeah, that was admittedly fantastic. Is there any chance we can see more of the EZA community's favorite doggo going forward? With apologies to Bender. Which is not Ian's dog, but Ian lives with Bender. It is Omar's dog. Yeah, it's tricky. So we have the desk for a lot of the stuff that we do. And so even if Sophie was in the room, you wouldn't see her. And so all she would do is obstruct things. All you would see are people like, whoa, oh, okay. You know, like reacting to her. There's also lots of more cables now with the more we change stuff and the more we add, the more mics and lights and stuff like that, the more easy it is for the, you know, just to trip on stuff. There have been a lot of streams in the past where we will have stuff set up. We'll either have props or we'll have a mic set up in a certain place, and so it can be triggered like a console setup. And I remember there was one time she loves to like sneak through stuff, and so we have the desk over there, and she loves to like go through the wires and like she'll unplug stuff. And so, you know, as people have mentioned in the past, they're like, I love if you know, things were a little less garagey, you know, like I love you increase your production values a little bit. And so I didn't want her to cause distractions for no benefit. For you to be like, I saw how Sophie ruined the stream, I just never once saw Sophie in that process. And so that's kind of why she's taken more of a back seat. But I think certainly at the beginning of group streams, we could definitely have Sophie around. And I think a lot of times she is. Maybe the camera's up too high now for you to spot her. But I don't have her around usually for Cup of Jones because I like to have the doors closed when I do Cup of Jones, and Sophie does not like to be in here when the doors are closed. Case in point, Sophie is in here now, and she's been roaming around this whole time, and she is now completely passed out. Even though I have said her names multiple times, she is totally passed out. Sophie, hey, come on up. Yeah, coming up, Sophie. Yeah, baby. Yeah, she's a parrot. So's my dog. But yeah, she just gets so bored. So like whenever she comes in, she likes to go to the back door and just like huff because there's strangers that walk by behind our house, and there's squirrels that run along the fence, and there's all sorts of things that she needs to sounds that she needs to listen to. Hey, you want to stay up on the couch? You stay up on the couch? Yeah, that's how I feel. So if I'm pooped. Over it. See, she's just not interested. And so now, but this is also the problem too, is when you give her attention. Oh, see, now she's got her thing that she's going to try to chew. Are you going to make a lot of noise when you try to do that? Or are you just going to put that over there? Nope, she's going to put that over there. And then she's just going to sit right there. No, she's going to stare at me now because she's like, will you please open the door? So again, now we're taking Sophie time, and I love this dog, and I think this is a very special dog. But again, it's Sophie time. So for new users of Easy Allies, for new people coming in, new patrons, we try not to have as much Sophie time. So she's giving me a look right now that you cannot see that's like, why are these doors closed? What is going on? Why are you talking to a stick? What is going on? Joey and Kate, what is the worst Christmas gift, video game related, that you have ever received? For me, it was Jurassic Park for the PS1. It controlled terribly, and I couldn't get past the second level. Nothing jumps to mind. I can't think of something that a video game thing I got for Christmas that was like, what? Not to say that that's not a funny story and that you shouldn't be ungrateful. Jurassic Park for the PS1, I haven't played it, so I don't know how bad it is. I did play Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo back in the day, though, and that game was sweet. But I do remember, and this turned out to be fortuitous. Oh, hello, yes. This turned out to be fortuitous after, because I actually found the game quite entertaining. But I remember one year at this animation company that I worked for, I think it might have actually been in game trailers, or it might have just been in the animation company, I can't remember. Because when I worked for this animation company, I was also producing game trailers, and part of that office became game trailers eventually. But I remember one year, my boss gave everybody a video game console. So some people got Xboxes. Sophie, yeah, see, it's a problem. Some people got Xboxes, some people got PlayStation 2s, some people got GameCubes. Like, he went around the office to check in with everyone specifically on what video game consoles they owned and did not own, and then got them a video game console that they didn't own. The problem was, I owned every video game console at the time because I was just crazy about video games. And so I had a PC, I had a Mac, I had a GameCube, I had an Xbox, and I had a PS2. And so everyone gets like a big box, and they're like, "Whoa, I got a PS2!" I'm like, "Whoa, I got an Xbox!" And I just get like a little package, and I was like, "Oh, what's this?" And it was Minority Report for the Xbox. I was like, "What? Like, shouldn't I get like 3 games?" You know, like, if we want to offset the financial investment in buying a console. And he was like, "Well, I just know you have all the consoles, so I just want to get you a game instead." And I'm like, "And you got me a licensed movie game?" Like, what? There's got to be, maybe, I don't know, maybe get me like a $200 gift certificate to, like, you know, Best Buy or like Toys R Us or something. The joke was on me. I put in the Minority Report for the Xbox, and it's actually pretty fun. One of the things, I've always wanted to stream it afterward. So, you're killing me, man. I got a show to do right now. She's just staring at me like, please open the doors, or just constantly pet me. I love you so. They have a slow-mo mode in Minority Report, long story short, where, Sophie, if you're gonna scream, just get away from the mic. Just get away. See? This is why. Just case in point. Who does immediately doubles back around and lies right back down on the mic. Where if you do a cheat, and then if you click the right thumbstick, everything goes into slow motion, and there's lots of breakable objects in that game, and so it's fun to grab people and throw them, and then right when you throw them, they have ragdoll physics, and then you click on the slow-mo, and they crash through windows and scream, and it's very fun. So I did that a lot. Sophie is chewing on this thing now. Sophie, no. Leave it so. Kif, how do you deal with staff retention? If an ally left, would you recruit to fill the gap? If Patreon dropped or other factors caused it to be unsuitable, what actions would you take? I apologize if the question is grim or something you would rather not touch. I'm a software engineer. As such, I'm used to the idea of restructures, redundancies, when the business requirements shift, and it plays on my mind. Leave it, so. No. See, now I took her thing away, and now she's looking at me like, I can't chew on that and distract everybody from watching the video. If an ally left, would you recruit to fill the gap? Maybe not necessarily. There would definitely be lots of ways that we could. No, leave it. I hope that answers your question. Who asked about Soph? Yeah, Simon. I hope this has been an educational process in why Sophie is not necessarily the best ally to have in the garage while doing live streams or shooting shows. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it depends on what ally left. It would depend on why they left. It would depend on when they left and what was going on with the Patreon at the time. If Patreon dropped or other factors caused it to be unsustainable, I'm sorry, not unsuitable, unsustainable, what actions would you take? I mean, we try to be pretty transparent via the Patreon, that you can see, you know, the Patreon works both ways, so you can see what goals we have next. We also see financially if we were to drop what that would mean for us, and that would mean we would, you know, not be producing retrospectives anymore and the like. So if there are goals that we have passed, we would obviously not be doing that. So Easy Allies is scalable by design, and so we would have to make tough decisions, but we definitely are prepared to make them. But if we were to drop by allies, I don't know if replacing somebody would be the best choice. I think we would want to grow possibly in different directions into evolve Easy Allies and not necessarily fix Easy Allies. You know, it wouldn't be something where it's like, oh, that's a gap and we need to fill in that gap. We would always kind of be looking forward. VG Junkie. I find that many popular streamers make it a point to give shoutouts to all their subs and resubs, taking a minute to go through the log and catch up if they missed any. Might be helpful to show some subs that you guys are noticing on the group streams. We definitely miss subs. One thing that's been happening a lot more that I would like to encourage, I love Damiani, I love having him on camera, but Damiani definitely likes to be on the controls, he likes to be on that computer, and we have been getting in the habit lately of putting a mic over there for the entire stream, and so I like having that mic, I like having Mike on the mic, or at least having somebody in that chair that if we have a new sponsor and none of us pick it up, that you can just turn the mic on and lean in and say, thank you to that person for sponsoring. And we're also figuring out how to possibly change the TV setup so that we can have something that not only we can see in chat, obviously, when it flies by, but we can have something that specifically alerts us on its own monitor that somebody has subbed so that we don't miss it. Because it is definitely something, as we were talking about earlier, where people in the back row can get distracted, we can get distracted, especially right at the beginning of podcasts, because we want to do an intro. And so we're like, hey, what's up? We're Easy Allies. We're starting the stream. And then we look over and like 8 people sub. And so it's like tricky if you're watching a stream and you're watching the end of the stream. Maybe we could do something right after the opening of every stream where we take 5 minutes and go back through and make sure everyone that has subbed right at the beginning we give credit where credit is due. Thank you, VG Jim, for that. Sophie's bored out of her mind. How many more pages we got? We got a lot of questions this week. Jordan Elder. I'm sure it was discussed internally early on, and at this point it surely isn't worth it, but is it even possible for Easy Allies to buy back their Game Trailers archive? And if so, would you even want that? It saddens me when I think that none of your previous content belongs to you, but I can also understand EZA being a breath of fresh air and a chance to own everything you release going forward. IGN is doing good things by keeping the archive alive, along with releasing the latest trailers daily, but I just wanted to see where your thoughts lie on the subject of acquiring what may only equate to show names and lore at this point. Jordan, very, very small. My interest level, it's like that. That'd be fun. The old content was something that I was in a continual process of having to say goodbye to. There were times when we had to decrease the size of the servers. Not only shows that we were backing up, that we had like high res that we could repurpose game footage or camera footage of if we needed to, but obviously the servers that we used to run GameTrailers.com and all of the media that was on there, media that we had put up for trailers for so many years, and media that we had put up that we had produced ourselves, and obviously media that we had collaborated with other people, Video Game Nerd, Hey Ash, Game Attack, and the like, Mega 64 and stuff. And we would get to points where it's like, this is too much. And I remember kind of the first time that happened where I just thought, like, we can't just keep putting media on here forever. And like, no, we have a limit unless we want to spend more money. And when we went over to Viacom and went over to Fi Media, like, they were not necessarily interested in spending more money just to have videos on there that could make them 0.00001 cent per year. And so there were many purges over the years of Game Trailers of looking at a big list and getting a highlighter and having to make the tough calls of like, okay, all these shows can go, and by go meaning gone. Like, we can maybe put them on a drive, but chances are that drive's going to fail at some point. Even if you have 2 drives and you have a little bit of redundancy there, they're probably both going to fail. And it's so hard to keep up with tech, and so hard when we were really busy working on features and staying up late and working all hours of the day to finish something, to take even more hours to go back and make sure a lot of that stuff was archived. So to answer your question, when you're like, hey, did it feel bad moving to Easy Allies to leave that GT stuff behind? I had left GT stuff behind on a yearly basis, pretty much. And definitely in 2005, when we sold Game Trailers to MTV Networks and Viacom, I realized from that moment, everything I'm doing, I don't own. So I was not happy, but I was understandably let it go when we left to Fi Media, because that's the nature of the beast. So, yeah. So IGN can, best wishes, IGN. It's all yours. Morgana God. I'm not sure if this means much, but my father was an animator for Disney back in the 50s. He worked on Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, and one other that I can't remember. He was actually in the room when Walt said he was going to make Disneyland. They were shocked that anyone would want to build a carnival in Anaheim. That's what they were thinking it was going to be when he pitched it, a rinky-dink carnival. After his time at Disney, my father also went on to design Fat Albert and work on many other projects, so the guy's been around. When I asked his opinion on what you said, he told me, the guy is 100% right. The whole point of animation is to breathe life into something. Just thought you may be interested to know that. So yeah, no question there, just a wonderful comment from Morgana God that I wanted to share. Morgana God, also a name I don't recognize, and just wanted to jump in, so... wishful thinking. I hope you didn't just come up with a story about some fictitious father, because that is a very interesting person. Lots of really great documentaries out there about the Disney animators and about the early days of Disney. Yeah, fascinating to have all of that work done. And interesting, the animated films that Disney made in order, and why that was the case. Tim Beshan, how important is it for you guys if I like the posts on Patreon? Because sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Not because I don't like it, just because I forget. And is it the same for you if I watch the videos here instead of watching it on YouTube? I don't think we have a preference in any way, either way, across that entire comment, Tim. You're good. You do you, Tim. Even Geithus Aura. Fascinating name. Even Geithus Aura or Aura. I'm from Norway, so I got quite a kick out of you saying you're Norwegian. How closely are you related to Norway these days? Not these days. I've been there. I went there when I was in the 4th grade, so I think I was 9 or 10. Got to visit Norway. Got to see the fjords, but not that related, and not related to politics. Not really following what's going on in Norway. Apologies. Keep me up to date, even or Evan. Keon Jerome, what's your dream collaboration? Buying out Disneyland, of course. Just buying the whole park out. Easy Allies Disneyland Day. You go to the castle, and I'm sitting there on a throne with my cup and my crown. Realistically, though, Rockstar doing a huge Red Dead something. So having some big blowout Red Dead event and hosting the hell out of it. Alex Selhammer, I've been seeing a lot of discussion about Easy Allies collaborations with people outside the group. In my opinion, what the brand needs is a set of guidelines that defines the values of the Easy Allies community. A lot of talk of guidelines in this episode. This might sound overly complicated and silly, but for any organization producing official content and trying to maintain a coherent identity rather than being a set of individuals representing only themselves, this is sort of essential. I think this is a democratic thing. Right now it seems like the decisions concerning what kind of behavior is accepted under the Easy Allies brand falls on Brandon. Having defined what values the community shares would be a way to spread that responsibility and make these decisions easier in the future. I think I run the risk of just being repetitive here, so I'll just say yes, Alex. I agree that that would help. I'm not saying that you're going to get that immediately, but that is the conversation that we need to have, and we will have. And what comes out of that will possibly be something that we can communicate in that way, a post or a page or someplace you can go to see official documentation on who we are and what we believe in and what we stand for. Pokey Clyde, as the Hall of Greats is coming up tonight, it works out that there are 8 games inducted every year. Rather than have a list that is updated on the website, why not end the year having a video celebrate the inductees of that year? We could do both. Read a little blurb about each inductee over some B-roll of said game. The problem is the B-roll of said game would need to be played and captured, which would take time. And it would suck to just show like the first level. Or like, low-res trailers. Throw in some highlights of the Allies' pitch for the winners. Who could forget Blood's Hadouken for Street Fighter II? I know it's not easy editing together a video like this, but using the highlights of the Allies' pitch, along with the blurb of why these games are considered greats, would be a cool way to immortalize these inductees every year and have a shareable video showing a piece of what Easy Allies is. At the start of the inductees 2000XX video, you could explain how the process works, showing other highlights from the streams. Huber yelling, "You bastards," when he thought Dragon Quest VIII was barred from being nominated for a year is classic. You could debut the inductees of 2000XX video at the beginning of your first Hall of Greats the year following, giving Easy A around 3 months to hammer out the video. Great ideas. I'll add one more Pokey Clyde to the conversation that we can debate in the future. Actually, I'll put that on the official takeaways list. Oh dear, which I've completely lost track of. Oh boy, lots of questions, folks. Might have to speed through these. Yeah, sorry. So. Post videos. One of the fun video we could do is like previously on. So when people tune into the Hall of Greats, it could just sum up the last one. Previously on Hall of Greats. And then we would talk about the 2 games that they were inducted in, why, and some highlights from that. And then that would lead in kind of like a WWE kind of way. So you would see. It'd be interesting to, now, once we get like, 5 or 10 of these done, it'd be interesting if someone like me, unfortunately, still has not gotten a game in to kind of play that up. And be like, what are they going to pick this time to get into the Hall of Greats? Fluffhead 108, I'm a big fan of the Easy A logo and color scheme and enjoyed previous discussion on some podcast about how you decided on red, black, and white. I'm curious if you have any other favorite company logos, symbols, or color schemes. Kind of random, I know, but since you're a connoisseur of how companies present themselves and advertise their products, I'm guessing you have some opinions. Yeah, I should have prepped this one. Disney fan, but Disney logo is logoage. I was trying to pick the right word, and that's not even a word. You know who's got good logos? Blizzard. Blizzard does really good logos. I love how they changed their logos, too. I love how the World of Warcraft logo has changed over the years. I love how in all of their trailers... I love the Blizzard logo. I love how it just kind of comes in out of darkness. They do a really good job of making text just look sweet. So, yeah, there's my quick answer. Because we got to be quick. We have like 4 pages left. Kiraz, where else can I crowdfund you? Have you considered other ways besides Patreon? We talked about this a little bit. PayPal probably isn't the best way to take donations, but I guess it's a starting place for the conversation of, we certainly will not reject any donations we get via PayPal. How else can I financially contribute to the EZA payroll? Nothing yet, but Twitch or PayPal or Patreon. That's all we got currently. Eric Mitchell or buying merch. Eric Mitchell, as a Canadian fan of the group from back in the GT days, I've got to ask, do you have any plans to start doing international meetups? Not right away, but yes, we want it. I understand that cost has got to be a big obstacle with this, if not the biggest. So I wanted to offer a possible suggestion. Maybe on an annual basis, you could poll the patrons to assess what locations have the most interest, choose the one with the highest, and then set up a GoFundMe for those people to help make it happen. I can't speak for everyone, but while I couldn't afford to make the trip to LA myself, I would happily contribute towards crowdfunding for the chance to shake all of your hands. That is something that's come up a lot, the prospect of spending people's money that are not directly going to benefit from the thing that they are giving money toward. And so that is something that we could do. We kind of tested the waters with that with Box Peak. You know, that was something that some people upped their pledges to give us a little extra money to make happen, and then we've taken that money and are now investing it in a show that you will see next year. But that was kind of nerve-wracking about, like, you know, if this isn't going to happen for a while, and if people are not necessarily going to see the benefits right away, is that something that people are going to feel comfortable with? Are we going to see a little morale dip with people donating money if they don't see the benefit? And so I know some people, other Patreons, do money giveaways and stuff like that. We're a little bit nervous with that because, again, we're taking money from some of our patrons and just directly giving it to others. But I love the concept of an international thing. Like, we were definitely able to put aside some money and send Ben to Tokyo, which I thought was great for TGS. And so it would be fun to maybe just pop some random allies around the world. We also, every now and then, get invited to international events for game events, but unfortunately we can't, like, talk about why we're there, so we don't always get the opportunity to go outside of the event that we're at and check in with people. Sophie is pacing back and forth. Morgan Mohala, how would you and the others feel about a once-a-month stress debriefing at a diner over pie and coffee? It would be a good opportunity to air grievances in a more casual manner, vent about situations that came up with the community, and focus on areas of improvement. What made me think of this was that I kept hearing you say that you had to get the crew together for a meeting to see how they feel about tackling topics and moving forward in spite of controversy. Not to sound critical, but this makes you sound a little disconnected from your team, and thought that it would serve as a bonding experience and an outlet for issues that may otherwise not get addressed. Also, if I'm wrong, please correct my misconception, as I also appreciate honest feedback. That's a great idea, and that's what we want to do. Once a year is about all we can swing at this point. That's how busy we are, and that's how difficult it is to get all of these people together. So I may be a little disconnected from my team, but specifically, every time that we do get together, it's always in the service of producing a specific thing, and so leading up to it, we kind of do small talk. After the fact, we talk about things that we want to work on, but we're either anticipating the thing we're going to do or tired from doing the thing that we just did. And so it's rare that we will meet purely for the service of just talking, and purely for the reason of just, you know, talking about controversy, talking with topics and everything that you discussed. So that's why at least once a year it's important to be like, hey, we're gonna get together, and it can be kind of frustrating to open up the schedule and then pick that day, and then as we get closer to it, be like, oh wait, I gotta shoot this show, what are we doing that Saturday? And it's like, that's the Saturday that we're meeting and just talking about things, and just like, like, can't we do that some other day and then use that day for shooting something? It's like, it's always easy to just push that to the side. And so it's difficult to just really pick that time. Like, no, we're not going to do anything else. If something else needs to be shot, don't tack it on. You know, like, that is just a day that only serves for a friendly chat over pie and coffee. I love that. Gotta have pie. I was told there would be pie. Robert, I've been following EZA for a while, but I never knew about the wealth of content that you all produced at Game Trailers before EZA. Having heard Elise Willem's name come up a bit recently and becoming aware of her previous role at GT, I'm wondering, would she be a good candidate for another ally? I think a lot of people that followed us back in the day, or that have been familiar with the work that we have done with Elise Willems, would know that I would never say no to Elise Willems becoming an ally. But Elise Willems currently works with her two favorite people in her life, her dog Benson and her wonderful husband, at James at Funhouse. And why would you ever leave that situation? Why, if you could work with your husband and you could work with your dog and you could work with the amazing Funhouse community, why would you leave that? So nothing but love for Elise. I miss Elise. Elise was a really great, not only was a hard worker and not only would, do really great work at GT, but she was funny and she was really smart. And I oftentimes I found myself going around and bouncing ideas off her. And when we did GT Live, she was my absolute number one pick for having somebody on the desk to talk to the community, to kind of banter with guests and stuff like that. And she's just aces. She's the absolute best. So hell yeah, but it's not gonna happen. Joseph Larusa, my girlfriend and I just got back from seeing the Great Moscow Ballet's Nutcracker. My first ballet. Nice. And it got me thinking, how about that score, huh? The Nutcracker score. But the Nutcracker as a piece of music is very impressive. It's like the Beatles, It's like one of those things where every time they start a new track, you're like, oh, that's what this is from. Got me thinking, you're a theater man. What are some of your favorite musicals, plays, operas, ballets that you have seen? And that you could highly recommend? And what are some that you want to see but never have had the chance? I want to see Hamilton, damn it. Hamilton's one of those things where it's just like, all right. It's like owning a Tesla or going to Club 33 at Disneyland. You're just like, maybe it'll happen one of these days. It's a goal. Amanda saw it with some friends, and I could get off my ass and go get tickets and pay attention to when it's in town or when I would get the opportunity to do it. But that's one reason why I'm actually really, really happy that I am married to an actress and that my brother is still an actor, because they take me to a lot of local theater, a lot of stuff that I probably would have missed. Amanda's introduced me to the world of many, many talented improv actors in LA. And improv is something that can make me potentially nervous. It's kind of like watching figure skating. I'm just waiting for everybody to fall over. But I've gotten more comfortable with it and have enjoyed it more and more as I have experienced it vicariously through Amanda. But I mostly am familiar with the musical department. So I want to talk about musicals. Operas and ballets. I really like Brain Donors. If you've never seen Brain Donors, it's not a ballet. It's not an opera. It's a movie about an opera. It's very silly. It's very Marx Brothers-esque. But I will tell you about my favorite musicals. Growing up, I used to really like Guys and Dolls. That was like my favorite musical of all time because it was very stylized. It's about a bunch of gangsters. They made a famous film with Frank Sinatra and The Godfather, whatever his name is. Boy, I'm tired and fried. Chat will let me know. What is this? Stella. What is his name? Oh my God. Oh, chat, please. Which was terrible because he couldn't sing because the guy's voice is Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando kind of has a pinched voice. He's going, The Godfather, he does that way back in the sign of the palette, way up here. And so when he was Sky Masterson, it's my time of day. And it's like, no, that doesn't really, nah. Nathan Lane played Nathan Detroit in a Broadway production that I saw in New York of Guys and Dolls that was fantastic. And Peter Gallagher, who's been in a bunch of stuff, I think probably one of Peter Gallagher's most famous films was While You Were Sleeping with, he was the guy who was sleeping in While You Were Sleeping. Played Sky Masterson. I had the wonderful opportunity to play Sky Masterson when I was in high school, and I will never forget that my senior year. That was great. But over the years, I've come to accept that Guys and Dolls is kind of silly. I actually made a transition when I went into college about what musicals I liked and kind of what musicals really stand out now. Growing up, I really liked a lot of cheesy musicals: Phantom of the Opera, Les Miserables, Miss Saigon, Tommy. A lot of shows at Cats, a lot of Starlight Express, a lot of stuff that had really big theatrics and stuff like that. I mean, me in Disneyland, like anything that had like fireworks as a kid in musical theater, I was like, musical theater is great. And then I go to school and I learn more about like Sondheim and I did Pirates of Penzance when I was in school. I would love to do a Pirates of Penzance animated film. Pirates of Penzance is written by Gilbert and Sullivan, who also wrote the HMS Pinafore. And Pirates of Penzance is very funny. There's a movie that's really fantastic with Angela Lansbury. Yes? Is that Angela Lansbury in Pirates in the movie? I might be completely making that up. But Kevin Kline is in the film as the Pirate King, which is a really great role. I would love to play the Pirate King one day. That would be fantastic. But he's very much like Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, the Pirate King. But Pirates of Penzance is a very old show, but very, very funny. And the rights are open. Anybody can do Pirates if they want to. And so I wouldn't have to get the rights to do an animated film. And I think that would... it was Angela Lansbury, nice. But I think... Pirates of the Caribbean, the Pirates of Penzance would make a absolutely dynamite animated film, and I would love to do that one day, or see that happen. But now, my favorite shows are Into the Woods, and Pippin. I actually popped in Pippin last night. I drove over to a friend's house and I popped in Pippin and was singing along to it a little bit. Pippin is a musical that I would love to see made into a film because it's kind of about musicals. It's a historical account of this prince that was the son of King Charlemagne or King Charles, or something. I can't remember what, or Charles the Great. Like, there's a lot of names thrown. I can't remember specifically when that takes place in world history, but is loosely based on a historical figure. And it was originally staged by Bob Fosse, who's a very famous choreographer, was a very famous choreographer and director and producer. But Pippin's a very scandalous, very sexy, very risque kind of show, but it depends on how you do it. But it's very over the top, and I would love to see Pippin as a film. I would love to see Pippin done, and to translate it from something that's obviously being done on stage. A lot of points during Pippin, people communicate directly to the audience and tell the audience what's going on. And so it'd be fun to take that, but translate it into a film, and instead of doing theater tropes, do film tropes. And also, I think the one musical I will leave on this. Sorry to talk about musicals for like 10 minutes. The one musical I would want to be in more than anything in the world is Sweeney Todd, which was another Stephen Sondheim classic. Company is also a very good show. But I would love to be Sweeney Todd. I would love to be in Sweeney Todd. That would be really great. So possibly maybe in like my 50s, I'll stage that sucker. Hi, Soph. Is this just painful for you? Are you just like, is this just the worst? Do you want to come up? Yeah, just come up and hang out. Yeah, just hang out. I'm not gonna like pet you the whole time. You can just hang out. Kex, ideas for increasing viewership. Guessing games. Anything the viewers can play along while with watching. It's dopamine. I'm thinking stuff like IGN's 20 questions, or a cropped IMG you have to guess. Or a cropped, I don't know if the IMG was what he meant to say, or 3 seconds of music and you have to guess what game it's from. These can be part of a podcast or its own stream and can be cut into its own separate thing, which also addresses the previously mentioned suggestion of shorter length content. You can have patrons suggest the game title and the allies present have to guess it. I think it could be great fun, and it allows viewers to feel more engaged. We have talked about game shows. That's something that people have said they want, so that's something that definitely does make sense. Kex has got 3 questions here. Kex, 2017 is about to end, and yet there's yet to be a Final Fantasy title in the Hall of Greats. Make it right, Mr. Jones. Only you can make it right. Final Fantasy IV was offered, and Final Fantasy IV got shut down, I believe. Final Fantasy IX was offered. Final Fantasy IX got shut down. We are in the early stages of Hall of Greats. If I'm going to bring Final Fantasy VI to the Hall of Greats, I want it to win. I want there to be no question that game absolutely should be in there. So that's why I have not done it, because if I bring Final Fantasy VI to a Hall of Greats, so I'm not bringing Final Fantasy VI tonight. If I bring Final Fantasy VI to a Hall of Greats and it doesn't get in, whew. Kex, would you allow mods for the community showcase? No, but fascinating question. XCOM 2 is a game that is mod friendly with its own Steam workshop, and I've created Mass Effect character ports, and I've made my own enemy units. Would any of those count? Yeah, maybe if you supplied images of it that we could show, if you basically did a collage of some of the work that you did, or explained it, or maybe did or send us a 3-minute video of you playing with that mod. But actually getting the game up and running the game and showing it that way would be too much, I think, for the community showcase right now. If we can maybe get a studio later, or if we can bring in more employees here at Easy Allies and I could have more hands on, more staff to help with the showcase, then maybe that's something we could do in the future. But for right now, images or video, and we would be happy to show that stuff off. Alexandra Nilsson Tofts, or Tofsy. I have a question for brand manager. It seems more and more common, almost mandatory, that in order for your game to be recognized, you need to promote it alongside your name, face, and personality. Just ask Joseph Ferris. She didn't say that. It seems like a lack of this could make people shy away from your product, and if they feel it makes it appear anonymous and flat. if they feel it makes it appear anonymous and flat. But also spreading your ego out loud, nothing wrong with that of course, feels like your name and personality might eventually overshadow what you're actually trying to sell. It's a tricky and scary business, so I wonder, do you have a list of do's and don'ts when it comes to building a personal brand? Yeah, first of all, it's not always required. Case in point, my favorite group is Rockstar, and not a lot of personality from them. They like to focus on other people. They like to focus on streamers and celebrities and stuff like that if they're showcasing their game. But you don't see them come out on stage and represent themselves with the person a lot. They just like to release videos. And so, and that's still good, obviously something that they can get away with because of their size and because of their track record. How are we doing? Yay, we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more questions. Creating a personal brand, yeah, I didn't create my personal brand for a long time. That was something that I deeply regret, not putting myself more out there, not appearing on invisible walls more. I often think about how game trailers would have been different had we started a podcast in like 2006, when podcasts were like a fairly new thing. I just didn't really value myself or my opinion that much that I wanted to put myself above the work that we were doing or above the games that we were covering. I always thought that they were the most important thing. And so I think that's it. Just kind of like, that's like my biggest recommendation. I'm not going to go through a whole list of do's and don'ts, but I think that's my number one do, and possibly a don't as well, depending on how you phrase it, of always understand that if you are there and you're putting yourself out there, you as a person are there to serve the product if you want to make yourself and your personality a part of that product. I think Joseph Fares, in the case of the Game Awards, found that he was putting himself in front of his product. He didn't actually say anything that wasn't new about the game that we did not understand. I spoke to him after at the party, and he was very adamantly trying to, suggest to me that I might not understand where he was coming from. And I'm like, Joseph, I definitely understand where you're coming from. I understand the concept of your game. I think it's very interesting. I'm excited to play it. But in the case of some people in the past, like, a David Jaffe or, just people that are very outspoken, someone like a Ken Levine definitely puts himself out and, in front of the stuff that he works on. Obviously, Peter Molyneux has had issues with making promises and not keeping them in the eyes of his fans. And so, you never want to put too much of the focus on yourself. You want to put yourself there as a face. You want to make sure that people know that face and can make that direct connection. You don't want to have any cloudiness over like what you do, what your role is with the company. Doesn't mean you have to say everything. Even in my position doing the show every week, there isn't. I don't share everything with our patrons. We got to save some stuff for funsies, but. You never want to release trailers, make content, or do anything about you. You want to make it about your game, and you want to fulfill that role of communicating your game. Aurelien Grenier, how about a new Patreon reward, $12 or $15 to be part of the weekly hunt? This is joining Ben Moore and playing, or anyone else, Michael Huber, Brad Ellis, or Ian potentially, or myself, or Bloodworth, or anybody, in Monster Hunter World. I'll bring it up with Ben. Here we go. Oh wait, it's on the next page now. $15 weekly hunt. Don't count on it, but I'll bring it up. G-Man Sir, can you elaborate on why you think Bayonetta 3 should have been announced before Bayonetta 1 and 2? So I said this on Twitter, got almost immediately shut down, which I love. I love having that conversation about people. It's what we talk about always during press conferences, about like what order should something be presented in. I thought a lot of the announcements were really great for the Game Awards. And I mentioned on Twitter that I posited that Bayonetta 3 should have been announced first, and then they should have announced Bayonetta 1 and 2. People immediately on social media were like, "You're on crack, Jones. Shut up, go home, go to bed, take a nap." And which I love, which is great, and I think a lot of those people that expressed that were fans of Bayonetta. So I don't think I'm right, I don't think I'm wrong. I'd be curious to play it the other way. Obviously, one thing that does have a lot of impact that has aged like a fine wine is just that the banter between Jeff Keighley and Reggie Fils-Aimé. It's something that I have observed many times over the years, having worked with Keighley and followed his content, worked with him E3, seen him live and not live, dealing with Reggie and not taking any of his crap and putting Reggie on the spot. And so it's fun to constantly have, you have Keighley asking Reggie those tough questions, and it was fun to have Reggie stop Keighley and be like, "Wait a minute, I do have one more announcement." But I was curious of flipping those because, as someone who was not a fan Not that I don't like Bayonetta. I think Bayonetta 1 and 2 look fantastic, and I'm excited, very excited that Bayonetta 3 is coming to Switch exclusively. I think that's a really good get for Nintendo, and I think that game will be very popular on that very popular console. But as somebody who hasn't played any of those games, coming out and announcing Bayonetta 1 and 2, I was like, oh, okay, that's neat. What a great announcement. That was something that we had rumored for a long time. It's add another excellent port that's coming to the Switch, and I think will be a great audience, certainly much more than the attempt at introducing that to Nintendo fans via the Wii U. And then they were done. And then he's like, oh, I got one more thing to announce. And literally when he stopped him, when Reggie was, and I'm not a Bayonetta fan, I do not follow the threads, I do not follow conversations. When he was like, wait, I have something more to announce, I was like, oh, Bayonetta 3, cool. And then they rolled a video, and I'm like, why are they rolling a video? We know it's Bayonetta 3. And then they had an animation, and I was just kind of like, okay, it's Bayonetta 3. And then it was like, what is it? What is it? And she's shooting, and then it was like, it's Bayonetta 3! And I was like, I know it was. They said, like, from the moment it's like hands started to move over to Keeley, it was like, I know what it is. And when fans tell me that scenario, they're like, when his hand moved over to Keeley, my heart exploded. Like, I started jumping up and down in my chair and just freaking out. And so, if you were still excited, my point is moot. It doesn't matter. But from my perspective, it just kind of dropped that announcement on the floor. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, and then anyways, Bayonetta 3. And I was like, well, screw the first thing you announced. That's the major thing. And by the time it got announced, all the air was out of the tires, and the wheels were scraping on the ground. For me personally, so it's fun to throw something like that on social media and have everybody that is a fan be like, you're not a fan. Quiet. Because obviously that is a very important perspective when measuring, how important stuff is. And whenever I lack that context with a particular franchise, be it scoring a trailer on Trailer Jones or talking about it here on Cup of Jones or on the podcast or live or in reactions and stuff like that, I will always assume my place as someone who is not a fan and probably value the opinion more of someone who is. Parasite Paladin, you have previously said that you watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure because it was given to you. You also said that you'd watch more if it was given to you. Not a direct quote, but you get what I mean. My question is, what are some games or even shows that you have no interest in making an effort to play or watch by your own willpower, but will 100% hop into it if it was given to you? I dare not say any or all anime, because then, no, not that. But certainly shows. Hopefully stuff that's short. I don't want to get a big 50 volume thing. Like somebody, I can't remember specifically the name of it, but somebody sent us a book series about that's kind of like Grim Fandango. That's about a bunch of skeletons and about the afterlife and the undead and how they deal with stuff. And it's like Skullduggery or something like that. It's a whole book series. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have time to go through all of this, but certainly thank you for people that have sent us that stuff. But that was sent to us as a general recommendation, but I have gotten things in the past where people send stuff and they're like, very specifically, I want you to see this. So nothing necessarily comes to mind, but when we do talk about anime, like Dragon Ball is definitely something that I've wanted to catch up on. Like there are some things, Naruto, like there are some things that I'm like, wow, Kyle's watching that? Like, all right, maybe it'd be fun to watch that stuff, because I hate, you know what I need to watch is Akira. I've never seen Akira. I'm very familiar with Akira, just visually. You can show me a picture of Akira and I know what it is, but I never actually sat down and watched it. And just like that, I lost 500 fans. Alex Droxler. Now, Dominic Barlow, Easy A for myself, and a great many people, is one of several generally one-sided interactions that we have with content creators, commonly referred to as parasocial relationships. This isn't a slight against your numerous efforts to interact with the community, just a recognition that it's impossible for you to know the members of your audience in the same way that we feel like we know you, thanks to hundreds of hours worth of streams and podcasts. Do you feel that Easy A has elevated how personally your audience relate to your public selves? And how have you and the allies coped with this relationship? With the general understanding, like you said, that we'll never know what it's like to view this on your perspective, and you'll never know what it's like from our perspective. But what I have noticed, Dominic, is that relationship gets closer as we move along more and more. I start to meet people in person and recognize them and continue conversations, so it's not always a first introduction. It's, oh, how are you, and what was that? I got to check in with several allies at our meetup this year on some very personal issues that we share, that we've communicated with offline, and so it was nice to see them in person and see how their 2017 was, and talk about our failures and our triumphs. But not only that, to recognize what people in the community represent what other groups of people, and what are good people. I've certainly appreciated this in the last couple weeks, with some of the controversy that we faced, and having certain people identify with other people in the community, so that maybe there's some people in our community that aren't that vocal, but they do kind of have, I wouldn't say a leader, but like an ambassador, somebody that we either have met or that is perhaps a bit more loquacious and does enjoy leaving comments or engaging via email or on Love and Respect or here on Cup of Jones. And so I think that's one way to cope with it, is these people. I mean, almost every time, Swordfish, there we go. There's a name, I can just look at chat, Christoph Fatui. Like, there's a name that I recognize right away. And so they're definitely people that I recognize that it would be easier to spark up a conversation with and be able to reference previous things that they've said in the past, or, replies that they have made on fan mail. Sometimes I send out fan mail every month, and like one person will get back to me, and it's usually the same person. And so these different conversations and relationships have grown over the years, and so that helps create less of a one-sided relationship. The relationship becomes an actual relationship and less parasocial. So actually social and not parasocial. But I love that. Parasocial relationships should be a podcast we do. Alex Droxler, have you thought of sending out a survey to all patrons with questions covering all aspects of EZA, which shows we watch, which ones we don't, what we'd like to see more or less of, etc. I think this would be extremely useful for you guys and way more accurate than basing your choices on random comments or weekly knee-jerk reactions. We're looking forward to possibly making some yearly knee-jerk reactions, but yeah, some kind of a... there's many forms that could serve. That could be something we do on EasyAllies.com. That could be something we do on Patreon. That could also be something that I've been considering doing a stream early in 2018, where all we do on the stream is just posit lots of questions to our community, and then vigorously check chat and parse the comments. I'm gonna go from the smoothie really quick. Coat the throat just a little bit. Don't have to do any VO reads, but got lots of shoots coming up today. I don't know who won the betting special. We're shooting that in 3 hours. I don't know how I feel about that. I hope I won. I mean, I want to win. Winning feels good. But I kind of want Ian to take down Ultima Brad, because Rainy Day Ian versus Ultima Brad would be just delicious. But I really don't want Rainy Day Ian to lose to Ultima Brad. If Rainy Day Ian wins this betting special and then loses to Ultima Brad for E3, that'll suck so hard. That'll be like Ivan Drago winning at the end of Rocky IV. You're like, what movie did I just watch? Like that. Scary times, folks. James Vest, I have to say it was great to hear that you're so interested in traffic safety. This kind of gets into the editorial I wanted to do today, but I will do in the future. And I completely agree that it is something that is a very serious topic, and people need to improve their driving skills. Especially young adults need to have better driving habits in many cases. One thing I definitely don't do is single out drivers by, race or age or, social status or anything, or gender. We're all bad drivers in some way. We can all be blamed for something at some point. It's just admitting those faults and seeking to get better at some of the things that you might have problems with. Yet, I have to be honest and say that when you were talking about that in your discussion, I couldn't help envisioning you as the host of one of the TV safety video programs you have to watch during defensive driving class, or a class to get your driver's license. And I got a chuckle out of it. I like having the clipboard too. Hi, I'm Brandon Jones. This is my dog Sophie. I'd like to talk to you about traffic safety. Here we can... That's the last question, so we can get in the... Here. Hi, I'm Brandon Jones. I'd like to talk to you about trailers and traffic safety. It's... I will say this about traffic safety, because somebody reached out to me. That's it. Thank you so much for everybody with the feedback. That is it. We're almost going a full 2 hours with this very chunky Cup of Jones. Somebody reached out to me because I mentioned biking too, and somebody talking about bicycles in Los Angeles is a tricky thing because there's two sides. Some people do a very bad job representing the bike community. Some people are very disrespectful, dangerous bikers out on the roads. But at the same time, bike safety is something that A lot of people bike here in Los Angeles. We don't really have the most amazing public transportation system in the world because it's such a big plot of land that we have to get across. And so freeways are jammed, buses are not in like the best condition. We have a railway that goes all the way to the beach now, which is fantastic, but it took forever to get that. They're talking about possibly even adding more rate lines in and around the city. And so something we've been getting better at, but, there are many reasons why it would probably behoove you to ride a bike. There's, it was one thing that I actually regret doing when I worked at Santa Monica, that I never actually rode my bike to work because it's something that I always wanted to do. It's just always nice to ride your car to work. But my main problem with bikers, and this is just one thing that I want to just leave, I don't want to do a major editorial on this, but this is one thing that I want to suggest before the end of this podcast, is I get really frustrated whenever I see bikers that are the triple threat. The triple threat. No helmet, on the sidewalk, going the wrong way. No helmet, riding on the sidewalk, which you can never do. Ever. You cannot ride a bike on the sidewalk. It is a vehicle. You cannot ride a car on the sidewalk, so you cannot ride a bike on the sidewalk. Going the wrong way. If you're on a bike, you have to go with the flow of traffic all the time. You cannot go the opposite direction. I actually, unfortunately, hit's a strong word, nudged someone with my car one time because I was getting out of a McDonald's and I looked this way and I was like, cool, I'm clear. And I'm not going to look for traffic that way because there's no traffic coming in the opposite direction on the road. And so I was like, okay, am I clear? Yep, nobody there. And then went to move my car forward, and a lady came in front of a car and just rode right into my car. And I was like, and then all these people on the sidewalk were like, what happened? And I'm like, she's going the wrong way, and she's on the sidewalk, and she's not wearing a helmet. And so it's like, you have to... If you don't wear a helmet, fine. I get that, like, people ride bikes and they're like, no, I got my hair, I can't wear a helmet. And like, no, I'll put a helmet on my kid, but I won't wear a helmet. And it's like, well, great. So then if you crash your bike and your head splits open, your kid can just watch you bleed to death. But he'll be okay. And you absolutely cannot go the opposite way in traffic. Like, you're supposed to, you are a vehicle. So like, when you think about a bike, you always want to think about a bike as a vehicle. When you see a bike doing something, be like, would I do that? So like, if you don't ride bikes through the crosswalk. I love when like the walk sign goes and bikes are like, excuse me, and they're just riding around pedestrians. Or like there's a parking lot and the bikes will just go flying out of the parking lot onto the street because they're like, wee, I want a bike. And so it's like, it's frustrating to see people be like, yes, there should be bike safety laws. There should be more enforcement for making sure that bikes have their place on the road and cars have their place on the road. I hear lots of scary, scary stories about people who ride bikes a lot and being hit by cars, having people open doors into them, having motorcycles get in the way, like having all of that is a very scary experience. But way more often in the city of Los Angeles, do I see somebody that is flagrantly not following the rules than somebody who I think is following the rules and getting mistreated by cars on the road. That is something that I think you can only really experience if you ride bikes yourself on a regular basis. You can see the frustrations that they face. But as a motorist, the frustrations that I face are people that just love to zigzag, that are just like, I'm going to go through that crosswalk in the opposite direction, then right through the intersection, over there, up onto the sidewalk, into a parking lot, and it's frustrating. So it's just something that, as Easy Allies continues, as Cup of Jones continues, every now and then I'm going to bring up some really weird, random stuff out of nowhere, because we talk about games a lot, we talk about love and respect and how to have conversations and be civil with each other, and hopefully we can be civil with each other on the roadways. But I will talk about traffic more in depth later on sometime in Cup of Jones, because there are specific situations that really drive me crazy. People that get stuck in an intersection. I got no sympathy for you, ever. If you get stuck in an intersection, traffic isn't moving and I'm in this intersection, I've never seen an instance where it's like, oh, there's no way that guy could have seen that coming. Like, come on. If you see the traffic slowing down and you see that the guy ahead of you in the intersection isn't going, don't like, well, I'm just gonna go. Like, so yeah, it can be frustrating sometimes, but I gotta pick this up and then take a sip. So there's a little taste of the Brandon Jones traffic editorial coming soon to a Cup of Jones near you. Our great takeaways from today: we need a code of conduct for reviews, or we'll possibly review having a review of a code of conduct for reviews. Potentially more an elaborate posting of the Hall of Greats, maybe segmenting out those clips and those highlights, or maybe doing a previously on or a year wrap up or a prediction of stuff happening in the future. And a $15 tier for weekly hunts. We'll bring that up with Ben and see what he thinks. So yeah, there it is. More Sophie. There we go. Just more Sophie in general. There's your takeaways. More in all caps. Sophie. This is the dog named Sophie. I am Brandon Jones. This is my cup. This is Cup of Jones. Sophie, guess what? We're going to wrap up Cup of Jones. I'm going to open the doors in the back. Are you ready? Are you so excited? I'm going to open up the doors and you can go outside. And then I got to go to potentially our P.O. box and get mail for the stream tonight. I got to go on Slack and text Kyle Boxman and see if I need to be even here for the Easy Allies 2017 PSX betting special results show. I may need to be there. I may not need to be there. We will see. But yeah, I'm Brandon Jones. This is Easy Allies. This is Cup of Jones. Thank you to everybody who has recently signed up for Easy Allies. Thank you for the patronage, for the sponsorship. Thank you for people that were sticking around. Thank you for people that said hi this weekend at all the major events, people that came to the meet and greet. Thank you to people who can't go to meet and greets. We had somebody say, please, come to Norway, come to, Australia, come to China, come to London. We definitely want to travel internationally. See, she just walked right underneath the tripod. I don't know if the camera moved, but she likes to... Oh, she's coming back. No, you're not going to go in the tripod. You're living in the danger zone, Soph. You never know when something's going to fall over when Sophie's around. If I keep this up any longer, I'm going to fall over. Thank you so much for watching Cup of Jones, everybody, for leaving amazing questions. I will have more information next week on maybe what's going to happen over the holidays. I might skip a week, might take a week off for the week of Christmas, but I will most likely be around next week. Next Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. We will see you and possibly Sophie for another Cup of Jones. Thanks, everybody. See you later.